Welcome. I am Iver Bernstein. I'm the director of the American Culture Studies program at Washington University. And it's wonderful to see so many people here on an absolutely gorgeous Friday afternoon in October. We are competing not directly with the wild or walk in and lie down undergraduate, sort of musical life event that's going up about 300 yards away on the quad. And so if there's a kind of dull thumping going on in the background, it's not your heart, it's not, it's the reverberations from the sound checks up on the quad. And hopefully you won't be walking in and lying down, but you'll be sitting, bolt upright and deeply engaged by our two distinguished visitors, Heather Thompson, once from Temple, soon from University of Michigan. Professor Thompson, welcome. Professor Koritha MItchell from The Ohio State University, welcome. We are so thrilled to have you here. We've dreamed of this event, and now it's here. And and I don't know that you two, you're sort of a matched pair that I don't know that we actually imagined how well you guys would get along with each other, but you seem to be getting along very well. So fantastic. Could have gone the other way, right? Anyway, so we're so excited to have you here. And just very quickly, before I introduce and hand it over to my dear colleague, Sowande Mustakeem in history, who will introduce our two speakers, just to say that today's Modern Segregation event, the second of four, this fall, is titled Identity, Place, and Violence, a topic that is urgent. It was urgent before Ferguson. It is agonizingly urgent. If it could be any more urgent after Ferguson, it remains urgent. And we hope to get some new leverage, some new insights, some new angles of vision on this important topic today. Just to acknowledge the Dean's, Arts and Sciences Dean's Collaborative Research Seed Grant that allowed this important event to happen. To acknowledge by name my two co-writers of the grant that produced this important event, Professor Rebecca Wanzo, Associate Professor of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies, Associate Director of the Center for the Humanities, Clarissa Hayward, Associate Professor of Political Science. We would not be here today were it not for the efforts of Professors Hayward and Wanzo and the collaborative vision that produced this fall series. Also, Ian McMullen is in the house, the director of the workshop on politics, ethics, and society, who have been our collaborator. I also want to give a kind of shout out to the Mellon Divided Cities Urban Humanities Initiative, which is going on concurrently with the Modern Segregation Initiative. It's wonderful to have the thickness on the ground of two major initiatives on cities and segregation and race going on in some kind of synchronicity and speaking to each other as they do. You can go on the Center for the Humanities website and learn more about that Mellon Divided Cities initiative. I want to mention the third and fourth workshops, which will close out our fall series. The lecture workshop part of it, Linda Alcoff of City University of New York, a distinguished philosopher and writer on the subject of identity. December 5th, that'll be a lunch event. We're not serving lunch today, but we will be on the 5th. And she'll be talking about the segregated pleasures of homogeneity. That's a paraphrase of her title, but that is more or less it. And Danielle Allen of the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton University on December 12th, also a lunch event at noon. Both of those events in this room. Professor Allen talking about modern segregation in the city. I want to introduce Sowande Mustakeem, who is Assistant Professor, Department of History, Assistant Professor, African and African American Studies. Professor Mustakeem is the author of an astounding book on the slave trade called Roots, soon to be published, upcoming, we'll call it upcoming, Roots of Terror, Gender, Health, and Power in the 18th Century Middle Passage. The book is astonishing because it sort of not just articulates the political stakes of the slave trade as no one has, the way power struggle centered on bodies, on life and death, and particularly on the health of the most vulnerable, the least protected, the most marginal enslaved persons, women, children, the elderly, the disabled, the so-called disposable. The politics of predation on the weak is really her sort of deep subject, and it sets the stage for the commodification of human beings in the New World as we see that stage being set on slave ships in a kind of graphic and beautifully told story. Anyway, so I'm doing a little book promotion for you, but Professor Mustakeem is also a renowned teacher, similarly articulating the human stakes of life in America, in the Americas, in her classroom as in her scholarship. Anyway, Sowande, I'm very privileged to call you a colleague, and I'm so happy to be able to hand it over to you to introduce our distinguished speakers.
Good afternoon. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome to everyone. And just to sort of give you an overview of what's going to happen, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then they will give their papers, and then I will give just very brief 5-minute remarks, so that way we all can engage in discourse on this very critical topic. So with that, I want to introduce Professor Koritha, am I pronouncing that right? Koritha MItchell. Professor MItchell specializes in African American literature, racial violence throughout the U.S. literature and contemporary culture, and Black drama and performance. She examines how texts, both written and performed, have helped terrorize families and communities survive and thrive. Her study, Living with Lynching, African American Lynching Plays, Performance and Citizenship, 1890 to 1930, University of Illinois Press, 2011, won book awards from the American Theater and Drama Society and from the Society for the Study of American Women Writers. Her essay, entitled James Baldwin, Performance Theorist, Sings the Blues for Mr. Charlie, appears in the March 2012 issue of American Quarterly, and her Callaloo Journal article, Love in Action, which her paper today is drawn from. It draws parallels between racial violence at the last turn of the century and anti-LGBT violence today. For full access to her other articles and reviews, you can email her, and I just want to actually share her email, Koritha MItchell, or her website, KorithaMitchell.com, and then also she's on Twitter. She is at Prof. Corey. All right, great. Okay. So next I will introduce Professor and a very good friend of mine, Heather Ann Thompson. She's a native Detroiter. That's interesting, Detroiter, yes. And historian in motion from Temple University, she's moving currently into University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, where she is in African American Studies and also the Residential College in History at the University of Michigan. Dr. Thompson has written numerous popular as well as scholarly articles on the history of mass incarceration as well as its current impact. These include pieces for the New York Times, The Atlantic, Salon.com, Dissent, and New Labor Forum, as well as award-winning articles that include Why Mass Incarceration Matters, Rethinking Crisis, Decline, and Transformation in Post-War American History, and also Rethinking Working Class Struggle Through the Lens of the Carceral State, Toward a Labor History of Inmates and Guards. Thompson recently served on the National Academy of Sciences Blue Ribbon panel that studied the causes and consequences of mass incarceration in the United States and serves as well on the boards of several policy organizations, including the Prison Policy Initiative, the Eastern State Penitentiary, a historic site, and on the advisory boards of Life of the Law. Professor Thompson also works in an advisory capacity with the Center for Community Change and the Open Society Foundation on issues related to work. On the scholarly front, she recently was honored to be named a distinguished lecturer by the Organization of American Historians, and in addition to recently completing Blood in the Water at the Attica Prison Uprising of 1971 for Pantheon Books, Thompson is also the author of Who's Detroit? Politics, Labor, and Race in a Modern American City, as well as the edited collection Speaking Out, Protests and Activism in the 1960s and 1970s. She's also consulted on several documentary films, including Criminal Injustice at Attica in 2015, Professor Thompson will officially be at University of Michigan. So that said, I don't know if we're going to sort of move everybody up here or we're going to go here. So we'll start with Professor Mitchell with her paper, and then we will go further, and I will end with remarks. Thank you.